first on the Soviet Commission. I've seen the document often quoted, and Stepan Bandera likes to quote it, about who's responsible for the violence for war crimes in Lviv. And usually, if you look at that, you can discover that most of them are Germans. I think almost all of them are Germans. Hans Frank is on there, although Hans Frank did not gain jurisdiction over District Galicia until in August, while the pogrom occurred in July. And if you look at that commission, it has a number of levels. So one level is the local level. At the most local level, they do interviews and things like that. Then they go up to the oblast level, and then they go up to the Republican level, and then they go to the all-Soviet level. What you see is the all-Soviet level. If you look at the investigations that lead up to it on the more local levels, you will find lots and lots of OUN people in them. Yes, these documents are available. Second of all, about that document, I'll say this, that the Soviets at this time, for Nuremberg, were not interested in revealing anything about collaboration in their own territory. They did not do that until much later, and that is because they were going to present Germany with a bill. Every murder was the Germans and their helpers, but it was always ascribed to the Germans. I have a great case in the town of Himka, where the Viking, the Waffen-SS Division Viking, and the OUN collaborated on murdering a great number of Jewish inhabitants in the town of Himka. And in the Soviet documentation of this pogrom, they claim that a certain Landau was involved in it. But in fact, that person was in a hospital and not even had reached Himka at that point in his career. So, the Soviet commissions have to be taken in context. It's not a question of forensics, it's a question of putting things together. As for Raul Hilberg, I've read his book. He was inspiring me right at the beginning of my studies of this. Actually, my supervisor made me read it when I was, in the 60s, late 60s. It had been written in 1961. But
there are 3 editions.
Yeah, I know.
It was subsequently updated.
Yeah,
in 1983 and then again in 2003.
You don't have to tell me the basics of Holocaust research. I actually know them. And as for Hilberg, he worked with the German documents, which gave him a German view of the Holocaust. But he didn't know any East European languages, and he didn't know much about East European history. He has that document which you mentioned about how difficult it is to get the Ukrainians riled up, and that refers to Zhytomyr, where there was no local OUN.
It does not.
It does.
It refers to Західна Ukraina.
Read it again. It's from Zhytomyr.
Yeah, it's specific. I read it again after your interview previously.
Yeah, and Hilberg's method of not using eyewitnesses was something that was very common in the early 60s. Hannah Arendt also wouldn't use eyewitness testimony or rely on it. They felt that only the German documents told the story, but that's simply not true. And I think that the big change in Holocaust research has been in incorporating eyewitness accounts to figure out what happened, because the German documents are not interested in certain things. They are a source, not the full source. So that's how I would respond to this. First of all, I want to say that many developed nations, mature nations, have dealt with what they've done wrong in the past. So, for example, the Germans are really among the leading Holocaust scholars today. They weren't for a long time, but they've wrapped their head around it, and now they have the very best research on the Holocaust. And in their public face, they try to do everything possible to erase that sad chapter of their history. The United States has reconciled itself to the fact that slavery was an evil. And so, for instance, recently on the $20 United States bill, Harriet Tubman, who is a person who opposed slavery and who helped to free many slaves, has now been put on a bill. So it's not so unusual. On the case of the Poles, I'll say that the Poles are a divided society, sort of like the Ukrainians in some ways. There are those who welcomed the research of Jan Gross, which showed what Poland was like during the wartime vis-a-vis the Jews. And there were others who just went into a nationalist denial, similar to kinds you can find in other East European nations. As for the Ukrainians, you'll find really divided views in Polish society. Right now, Ukrainian stock is low. And partially it's been suggested by Vasyl Rasevich that this is owing to the fixation of post-Maidan Ukraine with the Banderite heritage. But from what I see of Poland, there are those who are pro-Ukrainian, who want to hush up any kind of Ukrainian crimes against the Poles, and this would be people like Adam Michnik, Gazeta Wyborcza, and various liberals who were in the previous government. There are other Polish scholars who are, I would say, quite balanced in their judgment of Ukrainian history. You can find people like Grzegorz Motyka and others who just try to find out what went on. And you can find Polish nationalists, virulent Polish nationalists who are anti-Ukrainian. You have as well people who are the descendants of the ethnic cleansing in Volhynia, and they tend to be, I wouldn't say anti-Ukrainian because they're not, but they feel very frustrated by the presentation of Ukrainian nationalists as heroes. So Poland is different, and it's like many societies, it's divided over these issues. Even in Germany, there are neo-fascist parties, and even in the United States, there are racist and white supremacist parties. So I don't think Ukraine, by dealing with its own history, will be so unusual. I think a big difference here is that it's very rare, let's say that the Germans will not make Himmler a hero. They won't have a Himmlerplatz, and then the opposite example is Russia. There's no real realization of Russia and its minority policies. They have no thinking along that line. I don't want to be like them. What I think about Ukrainians is the Ukrainians should just do whatever is right. They should be intellectually right on top. There's no reason they shouldn't be. They should be talented in culture. They should have good history. They should put all this aside. But above all, they shouldn't be glorifying these people. So that's where I stand on that. I hope that answers your question.